Happy to have you all here with me tonight in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. I am thrilled to welcome two incredibly talented actors who first shared the screen as father and son on One Life to Live and have continued their creative collaboration ever since. John Wesley Shipp and David A. Gregory brought intensity and drama to their roles as Eddie and Robert Ford. And since then, they've worked together on the award-winning podcast Powder Burns, and now they're reuniting on stage once again. Next month, they'll take on the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial in the Judson Theatre Company's production, running April 24th through 27th. Tonight, we'll talk about their journeys from daytime to primetime, their past collaborations, and what's ahead. Please welcome back John Wesley Shipp and David A. Gregory to the Locher Room. I lost them. Oh no. They were here a minute ago, guys. So they'll be here momentarily. Let's see what happened. Hopefully we'll have them back in just a second. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday. As I was telling John and David backstage, 1 week from tonight, we will celebrate 5 years of the Locher Room, which blows my mind, everybody. Thank you so much for being here for this incredible journey. But hopefully the guys will be back in just a second. I don't know where they disappeared to. They were here. Let's see what happens. Okay. They had internet trouble on their end, so they'll be right here. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I can't believe 5 years. I really couldn't have done it without this incredible community and all of the guests like John and David, and really excited to have them both here tonight. So they'll be here momentarily. How's everybody's week going? It's Friday tomorrow. Big weekend plans for anybody? Oh, I don't know what happened. They were here. They had no problems. Hey, Michael, I hope you're doing great. Gabriel Benjamin. CJS. Oh no, what happened, everybody? Hopefully. Cheers to all of you. They'll be here shortly. Oh, he must have got bumped off the darn internet. Can give you trouble, can it? Can't it? They were here, I promise. I was talking to them. I don't know where they went, so, but they said it was the internet, so hopefully they'll be back momentarily. It will happen. They'll be here. They were here. I sure hope so. There they are. Ladies and gentlemen, David A. Gregory and John Wesley Shipp. Who pulled the plug on the internet?
They said, we don't want to see those guys.
The little hamster wasn't spinning his wheel fast enough.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. Great to see you both.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for your patience.
Of course. We need to start off with the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. How did the play, the project come together for you both?
Well, about 8 years, in 2016, I did 12 Angry Men for the Judson Theatre in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And I had such a wonderful experience and maintained a relationship with Morgan Sills, who's the creative director and who's also produced off Broadway up here in New York. And he asked if we would come and do, if we would be interested in doing the Caine Mutiny. And I talked to David. David was like, sure. And I was like, you betcha. And because it's a wonderful place to work. It's there in Pinehurst, North Carolina, at the Owens Auditorium. And they have a wonderful theater there that's been recently renovated. And it's just a really good time.
That's awesome. Well, was it, did they come to you as a pair, wanting both of you together?
He knew that. I think he came to me first technically because I had worked there before to see if I would be interested. And he knew he wanted David to play Greenwald. We're a pair.
We're a package
deal. Wherever we go.
I also get this. I had just bought the play, I'd say last fall sometime, and I was reading it. And I was like, this is such a good play. Nobody does this. And out of the blue, I think it was over the Christmas holiday, I got a text from you saying, I think Morgan is going to reach out to you. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I was just reading this play. And so, I got excited. I started thumbing through it again, and it all worked out, and here we are.
It's one of those.
What prompted you to pick it up, David?
Well, I've been on this deep dive, as we've talked about, with the Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart project that I'm working on, and I'd forgotten that Henry Fonda originated the role of the defense attorney Greenwald in the 1950s production on Broadway, and so I couldn't quite picture in my head Fonda playing this part because there's no record of it. So I went back to read it to kind of see if it was sort of in line with some of the other things that he's done. And sure enough, of course it is. And was reading it for fun and then got this phone call from John Shipp. Sometimes the universe aligns just when you're.
It really does. Can you, each of you, talk about the characters you play in the play?
Well, I play a very stern commander who had his, in the middle of a typhoon, was mutinied and had his ship taken from him. And the book, The Caine Mutiny, Pulitzer Prize winner, tells the events on the ship, the court-martial, and afterwards. It gives you the whole story. The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial play only gives you the court-martial. The interesting thing about that is the audience is part of the panel of people who are judging the innocence or the guilt. You get to listen to the testimony, you get to listen to the way he questions, the way I sometimes very defensively respond. But my character is a very sort of uptight, old school commander who is very severe in his discipline and who in the middle of an emergency event was mutinied, had his ship taken away from him. And now it's the trial of the guy who mutinied and took my ship away, my executive officer, whom David is representing.
That's right. So I play Lieutenant Greenwald, the defense attorney in the case. My client is Stephen Merrick, who's the man accused of mutiny, who's going to be court-martialed. And I've taken this case on simply because I don't know who's guilty, but I know that my client is not. Mm. So it's time for me. This is one of the interesting morality questions in the play is, well, just because this occurred and just because it happened doesn't mean that everybody in the situation is guilty, but it also doesn't mean that everybody's innocent. So it's a line I have in the play. It's a question of degree. And one of the interesting things about Greenwald in the play is he's sort of faced with this moral dilemma to do the wrong thing to get the right outcome. Because suddenly I find myself in the second act going up against Captain Queeg. I don't necessarily think he's a guilty person or he's at fault in the situation, but because I am the defense attorney, because I'm protecting my client, I'm forced to go after this guy with everything I have. And it's a conundrum. And you get a pit in your stomach just thinking about it. But
there's a lot of brilliant ambiguity in the play about what kind of tactics are being used, and the audience gets to participate, who's guilty, whose ethics are in the right place. You say you believe your client is totally innocent. Your very last line in the play, which we will not say what it is very interesting in
Yes,
light
it
of
is.
that.
Yes, it is.
There are lots of switchbacks and surprises
Yes.
as the audience takes this journey through this court-martial with us.
Have you, I know you're at John's place right now rehearsing, do you fall back into place as easy as it was on One Life to Live?
Well, we've never stopped working together.
Yeah, that's right. So John did the scripted podcast Western that I wrote.
I will ask you to talk about that later again.
We won't jump the ship on that.
Yeah.
But so we really haven't stopped working. In fact, this is what's interesting is this is the first play we've done together as actors. And we've worked in other mediums. We've done audio together and we've done television together. And there's really not that much of a difference, I don't think.
Although we did the workshop of Hank and Jim Build the Plane,
Right.
which was a workshop on stage.
But I wasn't on stage with you then.
Oh,
I was just
you were
the nerdy writer in the background.
He was the
nerdy writer. Well,
play.
Speaking of,
yeah,
where is that? Where is the play you're working on, the Henry Ford project? Is it a play?
Yes, it is. I'm simply spinning in developmental waves at the moment. We have a new director who's signed on, but he's overseas right now working. So I've submitted the most recent draft to the producers who have talked about it with their production company, and I'm just kind of waiting to have a meeting with them about it. As you know, in show business, everything takes longer than you want it to. So I'm optimistic, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. We're just waiting for all the hands to be shaken, shook. And in the meantime, I'm going down to North Carolina to do something on my own. So
yeah, well, and you're going to have a blast. And the link is up down below on YouTube for anyone who can make it to Pinehurst and see them on stage, which I'm jealous because I would love to. If I could be there,
I wish you would come.
I wish.
It would be very exciting. That's how I say there's enough ambiguity in the play. And David and I trust each other so implicitly as actors that I truly believe that performance to performance, they're going to be little curveballs. And we're going to be on this tremendous journey together to see where we end up on a given night in the course of going at each other, which we have some experience at doing from one night.
just a little. David, have you played a lawyer before?
No, I'm so happy. I have to say this. So I got this job on the Good Wife spinoff, The Good Fight, when it aired, I think 2017 on CBS. And I was so excited to be in the pilot of this episode. And I had a small little arc on the show, but I was playing one of the lawyers like boy toys. And somebody goes, "Oh, I'm so excited for you. You got on the Good Wife. You're going to be a great lawyer." And I was like, "Well, I'm not really playing a lawyer." And then, "Who are you playing?" I was like, "Well, I'm playing this like asshole fitness trainer that is sleeping with one of the lead prosecutors or whatever." And it occurred to me as I was saying it that there's this assumption that if you're taking off your clothes all the time, then you're not considered one of the smart people. And so I was like, all I want to do is play a lawyer. And I've been putting that out there. This is the first time I'm going to play a lawyer. And I couldn't be more excited.
Well, and lawyers on soaps usually have a lot of dialogue. Do you have a lot of dialogue?
I certainly do. In fact, take a seat, Greenwald. Quit talking.
Yeah.
As someone who's been paid to take his clothes off a lot on television, I can reassure you that there comes a time where they pay you to keep your clothes on.
I think I'm straddling that time period.
I can't imagine that, John. You still work out.
I do. But gravity will out, I'm afraid.
That's so true. Tano's Treasures is their screen name, and they said they're taking their parents to the play on Saturday for their anniversary, as they are retired Navy officers.
Oh, I love it.
Gosh.
Oh, I love it.
Wow. Both parents are retired. That's incredible.
I love it. And that's who this play is for. It crossed my mind with a title called The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. People might say, oh, this is a chance to bash the military. Well, it is. Nothing could be further from the truth. That the play ends up honoring all of the difficulties, the stresses, the pride, the honor, in some cases PTSD, what it costs our brave men and women who have fought, some of them their entire lives, to defend our republic, our democracy, our constitution. And And if anything, we're putting this on to honor their service. So I'm so glad that they're coming.
That's awesome. I love that. They said, "Hey John, it's Ahsoka."
Ahsoka, yes.
That's who's bringing their parents.
I love that.
Oh, right on.
I love that.
Do you remember you two meeting for the very first time?
It would have been fall of 2010.
I remember.
Tell us, go ahead.
When I came in as Eddie Ford, they had built the character up and built the character up. And in fact, some of the audience was thrown because they thought I was going to come in and play this like Jerry Verdorn's slick criminal mastermind. But I looked at the dialogue and I looked at where the characters fit in, and I said, wouldn't it be much funnier if this was a very blue collar mastermind wannabe who is hopelessly inept and takes out his frustrations by being abusive to his sons? So I almost at the beginning played it with almost a vaudevillian bent.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the one where the three sons were in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I came in, and there I am. I'm going to live with my three sons. I'm telling them how much I love them. And I have a mouthful of cereal. I'm
That's the
spitting cereal everywhere. And the young.
So Nick Roebuck was James.
Nick
the middle.
Roebuck literally was going. It worked brilliantly.
That's great.
But I mean, it was like I always tried to make the cameraman laugh. I figured if I could make the cameraman fall off the camera, then I had done my job. Until it got very dark at the end. But yeah, I remember that. But we very quickly, and then I'll shut up. We very quickly locked in. And that's why I'm excited about doing this play at the Judson Theatre in Pinehurst, North Carolina with David, because we work the same way, which is we try to bring our A game to every project that we do and do the best, most truthful work that we can do as we can. It's not just a job that we get paid for. So it makes it a very dynamic, creative experience.
Well, I also think good men or good people, as you both are, bring energy to each other.
I appreciate that. I'll take that.
Thank you.
David, do you remember?
Oh yeah, well, I was gonna say the cereal, because we didn't rehearse it with the goddamn cereal, so he starts spitting it everywhere. And the thing is, there's something in the back of my mind that goes, "I know what that is.
I know
what he's doing because it's throwing us off." And whether you're doing it on purpose or not, I was like, I know. So like kind recognizes like kind, and I was like, there's a part of me that was like joyously celebrating what he was doing, because I was like, if this is how it's going to be, then every scene is going to be different and exciting and percolating.
And it was improvisatory.
Yeah.
And we had to decide, because there were three sons that I abused, and we decided amongst ourselves, okay, how do we differentiate these three relationships? And just talking about our relationship, Bobby was the oldest. Bobby was the most like Eddie.
Right.
We wanted to show that Eddie would take stuff from Bobby that he wouldn't take from the other two sons.
That's right.
Bobby could push back. In some instances, we would be on our 5-minute breaks. I would start a line and I'd say, well, why don't you pick this up in the middle and take the end of it, so he already knows what I'm going to say? Or why don't we switch lines here? Or why don't you why don't you do this, so that we mirrored each other. We realized that these two, that Bobby, poor Bobby, who much to his chagrin, was the one possibly who most took after his father,
right. Right.
But it was such fun because they gave us leeway.
Yeah.
As they will do in daytime, once they realize you're not serving your own ego. They'll let you say, well, what about this? Well, what if instead of there, what if we say this? Or what if we put this here? And then you go over there and do that. I really believe I had such creative freedom on One Life to Live that if I had said, okay, at this point, I want to set the sofa on fire, they would have all handed me their lighters.
Which is great for me because I was only like a year and some change in. So I was still kind of a new kid on the block, but he walks in and they're just going to lay out the red carpet for whatever he wants to do, which meant that if I was in the room with him, if he was like, no, David and I are going to do this, I was like, yes, because then I'm not going to get in trouble for whatever it is if I wanted to eat cereal with him, they would say, yeah, go for it.
No, we
David,
had a
were
lot
you
of
familiar with John's work before? Some of, I mean,
Yeah, of course. Well,
some of his soap, I grew up on his soap stuff.
Yes.
As the World Turns and Guiding Light. I mean,
so we knew when he came in that he was royalty, that he'd won the back-to-back Emmys. But I think all this generation knows about The Flash. I grew up sort of a sheltered childhood. I wasn't watching like Batman the Animated Series or The Flash or anything like that because I was a little young at the time, and but I certainly had YouTube things and I knew exactly what it was. But also with that intimidation, you're thinking, okay, so here comes this guy, and I can use that intimidation based on what the script is saying to my aid. Like, oh, I'm scared of this guy. But then I was like, wait, he's so much fun and I ran into this a little bit with Erica Slezak. I admired her so much that the scenes where I had to like be tough on her, the director had pulled me aside and said, you got to be tougher on her. You can't treat her like Erica. You're being too nice. And with him, they're like, you got to have a little bit more fear of God because he's actually an abusive person. This guy, this face.
I know.
No, but I was terrible. But I would do all these outrageous things that were borderline funny.
Right.
Like we'd be having this tremendous argument in the middle of nowhere. I'd say, I think we need to get the whole family together and have a little prayer breakfast. Right. And I remember when I said that in rehearsal, they went, oh no, you can't say that.
Prayer breakfast.
And I said, I can't say what? Prayer breakfast. I've said bitch, whore, son of a bitch, mother, pansy ass boys, all these things I never expected to be able to say on daytime, but I can't say prayer breakfast. I said, believe me, by the time I say we need to get together, have a prayer breakfast, the entire audience will say, if ever there was a family that needed one, it's the Fords.
We sure did.
That's great. Well, fans of One Life and As the World Turns definitely would have been frightened to walk down the street and see you, John, without knowing that you are the good guy you are. But, those two characters were quite, intimidating and scary as shit.
Yeah, they're fun to play. That's what I thought. My specialty is superheroes and psychopaths.
Just listening to you talk about playing at One Life, do you, I think because of who you both are, you probably find actors who want to play, but do you also find actors who don't?
Oh, yes. Why do you think I've gravitated so much toward this guy? Oh, you want me to do, you're having David play Greenwald, right? Oh, of course I am. Oh, good. Yes, I'm in. Because when you find these creative kindred spirits who are not there just for a paycheck and do want to bring their best to the work all the time and be improvisatory. And well, what about this? Well, okay, well then let's take that and build on this and let's see where we come out at the end. Then you want to work with those people all the time because there are people. And I especially saw this.
Uh-oh. Did they freeze? Hello, hello? Not again. I mean, what a great picture. They're frozen on my screen. Are they frozen to all of you as well? Frozen on your end, folks? Yeah, they got kicked off again. It looked like mugshots. Are they not hysterical? They are hysterical. I love them together. Love them. Shall we take a look at them in action on One Life to Live?
Show's over here.
And what show would that be? The one where I pummel your face for 10 rounds in front of your friends?
Or the one where I pummel yours?
Not likely.
No, there's one reason why you're not going to take this deal.
Well?
Because you know I'm going to run your ass out of town with your tail between your legs. Man up, Pops. Let's get this out there once and for all. You and me until I knock you back to Ohio.
Oh, for goodness sake. If you want me to beat the crap out of you for old time's sake, I'm game.
All right, Dad, let's do this.
Huh? Hold it. You know, I never said that I would fight you now.
Why not? Why not? Edward, we can get this over in 3 rounds if you last that long.
I got extenuating circumstances.
Like what? You don't have a job here or any friends.
You don't know what I got here, boy.
Oh, he's just stalling.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Right,
You know,
so-
I think we should call this
Scared
whole
of fighting
thing
somebody
off.
that can actually fight you back?
Scared of you? Not likely.
All right, prove it.
Listen, if we're gonna do this thing, let's do it right. We need to get a crowd in here.
Crowd, huh?
Yeah. What's a fight without spectators, gambling, a piece of tail to do the cards? You know, make it worth everybody's while. Unless, of course, you're afraid to let your friends see your dad beat the stuffing out of you.
No, I've actually got no problem inviting friends over to watch me kick your ass.
Well, set it up, baby boy. I'll be there.
Inviting my friends over to watch me kick your ass. That is a great line. Great line. So hopefully they are returning momentarily. There they are, I think. Yeah. Take 2.
Are we back? We're back. We're back. We're back.
We just watched you two on One Life to Live. While we were waiting, the line of David saying, I want to invite my friends over so they can watch me kick your ass.
It's a good time. It was a good time.
Some great stuff, guys. Some great stuff. What are some of your favorite scenes together?
I wish I could remember thanks, JC. I wish I could remember. There's a scene where you invited a prostitute over, and her name was Bianca.
Oh my God. This is where we really saw that Bobby was the favorite son. And we exchanged lines. Yes, her name was Bianca. You came home and I had a prostitute.
And you kept getting her name wrong.
And I kept getting it right on purpose. It wasn't, I would call her Blanca, I'd call her Blanche, and he'd keep correcting me, you know.
And there were moments of like, I kind of understand why you're doing this. And then there's a screenshot. I have it somewhere. I grabbed him by his, like right here. And I was
he
like,
totally did.
get her out. but it's because, I don't know. I was not able to express anger to anybody on the show until he came on. And I feel like that was part of the reason why my character was so messed up.
I was so enticing. If I was doing push-ups on the floor, I threw myself over the back of the couch, and I was, for no reason, I was doing sit-ups, you know, and I was going on and blah, 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 blah. Finally, he had had enough. And he grabbed me by the shirt and turned me around.
That's
and
what it is. Very good memory.
And I was like, whoa, you know, but proud of him.
Yeah.
You know,
Never mind the abuse. Just who, you know, the characters you played would send any child into trauma. You know, if there was an abuse just because of, you know, that, the push-ups and the, you know, prostitute and all of that. Therapy was, you know.
There's also this element of, even though he's an abusive father, he's still my only father. And I felt that there was a lot there that was like, well, yeah, but this is the guy who I want to be all these things for me. So for better or for worse, it felt as if my character was constantly reaching for him, which made it so tragic despite the way he treated me. Where I was like, I just want to hang out with you. Because I would have had the most memories with you. Whereas the other 2 sons would have been like, your youngest would have been only with mom, and the second born wouldn't remember you as well. But
whom I called the little bastard.
That's right.
That's my affectionate nickname for the middle son.
Very loving term.
I found great. There's beauty in that somehow. I mean, it's messed up for sure, but there's a lot there that I don't know. I think over time came out.
Also think it helped that John and David like each other. So even though we're playing an abusive relationship, it wasn't hard to tap in the parts of me that are proud of him, you know, and happy to be working with him. One thing I do want to say about our working together, and this is indicative of the way we work. The last scene we did together was in hell. right? We had both gone to hell, and it was just a series of black boxes and black slats turned sideways with white light coming in. And I'm climbing all over the boxes, and I'm doing my Eddie thing and being a gargoyle. And I look over, and he's on an emotional journey. And I'm like, oh, we're on two different tracks here, and I'm getting in the way of where he needs to go. In other words, all of a sudden, he wasn't playing. And I knew there was a reason. So I went to David and I said, David, I know I see what you're doing, and I'm stepping on what you're doing, and I'm going to pull Eddie back so that I don't get in the way of your emotional journey, because as fun as it was to make Eddie as outrageous as I possibly could, this moment was not about Eddie. It was about his emotional journey. We had another big scene where all the kids were there, and I was over there doing my thing, and it was interrupting the rhythm of the scene. And the director got so mad, he came down to the floor. And I looked around and I saw all these young faces, and I thought, God, we've been having such a great time. I could tank this entire experience right here by insisting on doing it my way. And instead, I just laughed. I said, oh, come on, John, you're over here winning Emmys. Just say the damn lines.
I remember.
Everybody exhaled.
Yeah.
We all laughed. And then we did the scene. Sometimes you got to put your ego in the right place, you know.
Was that the Boxing Day?
The
day you said I'm over
you.
here. Yeah, you kicked me.
Yeah, we had a fight on the floor.
Yeah. That was the Boxing Day.
Yeah.
I am very impressed with the memories. I was reminded Jessica Lucia playing Inez. Who I adore beyond words. What do you remember about working with Jessica?
So you
Your
just
mother,
yeah,
right?
My mom. You just had her on your.
I did for Venice. Yeah.
She's the best, and she. I remember because the age difference between her and I is actually not that extreme.
Yeah.
And there was a day where Frank Valentini, he came down.
My sister, my lover.
Yeah,
my
he
mother.
came down to the floor. He came down to the floor and he said, will you stop flirting with your mom? And I said, I'm sorry, you're having me say these lines where I'm like, Mom, I love you, I miss you. And it just, then we get in close proximity. And so he's like, you just have to treat her differently.
Yeah.
May I say a word at this point? I love Frank Valentini. There are very few producers that I was glad to see when he was on the floor, because his eye and his instinct was unerring. When I did my first scenes tied to the chair with tape over my mouth with Bob and Hillary, and after the rehearsal, he came up to me and he said, 15% less smart. And for some reason, I got it. And that's where Blue Collar Eddie, who was using bad syntax. I have a story about the woman who played your mom.
Jessica.
Jessica. There was one scene where she was coming in. Mama Wolf was coming in for her boys. And I was in a bathrobe and I was making all these silly, stupid comments and offensive. And at one point she was supposed to haul off and smack me. Well, when you don't know another actor, sometimes you're timid. So we went backstage and I said, okay, Jessica, slap me again, harder, until finally, when the scene came, I said, okay, I think we're ready. When the scene came, she just about took my head off, but it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I also have to say about her that I've been asked this recently, would I go back and do anything differently on the show? And one of the things that I think I've learned is that I didn't have as much of a capacity emotionally as an actor when I was on the show that I have now. And part of that is life kicks you around a little bit and you go through loss and things. So it would be one thing for me to say, yeah, I'd like to go back and do some really juicy scenes. But the fact of the matter is I was so concerned about how to manufacture them that I got in my own way a lot of the time. With Jessica, I had to have this scene where I had to cry and say, Mom, I miss you and you haven't been around. And I was like, I literally came in that day and I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And up until the second we shot it, I didn't know what I was going to do. Then she starts talking to me and she starts crying. And I've never felt this before. I realized that actors get so in their way because of what they think they're supposed to do. Sometimes they forget to listen to what's happening right across from them. And all I had to do was look at her, and I burst into tears. There's something about her. She was always percolating.
Lovely.
And
lovely.
And I could not have asked for a better person to teach me that lesson. And of course, she does it in a way that doesn't feel like you're being taught.
She deserves such a better husband than Eddie.
Yeah, she probably does. She is a beautiful person inside and out, Jessica.
Inside and out.
Yeah,
lovely.
for sure.
Lovely.
Yeah, she really is. So we mentioned Powder Burns earlier. You wrote this beautiful original Western audio drama, David, with a stellar cast: Ed Asner, Robert Vaughn, and this guy right here. Tell folks about the series and where did the idea come from?
I had this idea a while ago. So it came out in 2015. I can't believe it's been 10 years already.
I can't.
I had this idea a while ago to justify the genre, the audio drama genre, by saying, okay, the lead character is going to be blind. So the whole show has to be experienced the way this character experiences it. And so I tried a couple of different permutations of this with different scripts that just didn't seem to work. And then I tried it as a Western where you strip away, you don't have technology, you don't have cell phones. And suddenly I wrote 3 scripts in like 1 week. And I thought, okay, this is something. I, of course, approached John to work on it. But because John had just started working on The Flash, I thought at first, well, he's too busy. Don't try to pressure him. So I said, would you come in and guest star as the bad guy? And his response was in the email, I will do whatever you want. And I thought, well, then... do you just want to play the lead guy? Because I'd rather have you do that. So we had a first rehearsal. We did this pretty rarely, but we did a day of rehearsal without recording, and then we did our recording the next day. And I knew right away that we had something special. And is it because, did you not say that you were partially modeling some of the cadence on your dad? Because he was from the South? Or am I making that? I might be making, it's a better story in my head, maybe?
Maybe it's a better story.
Okay. All right.
I don't remember my dad. Yeah, no, I got it off the page.
Okay.
I got it off of what you wrote. And I talk about a brilliant concept, an audio drama with no visuals. See the Old West the way the blind sheriff does, without sight. And every Noah DeBlas,
Noah Tobias. Yeah.
Tobias.
Yeah.
Every episode was atmospheric. There was snow. There was
our director
rain.
Engineer. Yeah.
There was this. And audiences ate it up. They still ask me about that. When are we getting more powder burns at Comic-Cons?
Interesting. Well, David, when you were here 3 years ago, you told me all about it. And I think I had told you, I really had not listened to audio dramas, and just like days after drove to Provincetown by myself and listened on the whole car ride up. And I loved every word of it and felt that I was completely there. So anyone who has not heard this audio drama should download.
I appreciate you.
Do you have more?
I know what David was talking about because my dad went legally blind.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so
That's
I
what it
had
was.
said playing this part and sending him these podcasts is going to be very meaningful to him because my dad, Westerns were his favorite genre.
That's cool.
And he was legally blind, and I'm playing a blind sheriff in the Old West. So it was very meaningful for me in that way.
I got to talk to you, Alan, and I'm sure I told you this too. So the whole idea with the show was to sort of tackle modern topics, but in the guise of a Western. So like our second episode is about this mentally challenged boy who holds up a bank. And can you hold this kid hostage for something he didn't realize he was doing? It's pretty topical. Later on in the show, Ed Asner guest stars as my father, who's this aging former sheriff who thinks his best days are behind him, but it becomes very clear that he has dementia. And something that came up for me that I didn't even realize, and I don't know if we've talked about this, Alan, was because my dad at the time had Alzheimer's. I got to play a draft of that episode for my dad when he was still pretty with it. And he responded to it in such a way that I didn't expect. But I have this memory of going up to Alaska, playing it on my iPhone. I told him and my little brother were sitting there. I said, we're only going to listen to the first 5 minutes, and we're still tinkering with sound here and there. But we were sitting on this picnic table, and I played the first 5 minutes, and we sat there and we listened to all 25 minutes of this episode because he kept wanting to hear the rest of it. I will never forget that. It's nice to have awards for something you've worked on. It's nice to work with wonderful people, but sometimes you forget that the award is the thing that brings you around the picnic table at the end of the day. Do you know what I'm saying? I will never forget that as long as I live. The fact that my dad got to have cognizance over that and still be affected by it and was still excited enough to know that it was about something I made instead of something that was separate from what we were doing.
Yeah, what is it like having people respond to your words like that and the audio drama? Different from your acting. It's a whole other.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know I was a very good writer until I started getting the response from people listening. We had like a Twitter page for the show for a little while, and I thought, oh, we don't have that many followers, but people would write me from other parts of the world and say, I'm gathering my kids around to listen to the next episode of this show. And this was a very special email I got from this man who was taking care of his grandfather who was in hospice. And his grandfather said, can you play that old show for me? And he thought, oh, he must want a Gunsmoke or a Lone Ranger. And he said, no, that other one about the blind sheriff. This man did not distinguish that our show wasn't from the 1950s. Wow. And that to me was like, we took him back. That to me, you can't ask for something like that. So all of it was very surprising. I think now I'm starting to learn that maybe I have a gift for something that I didn't know I had before.
Our first reading of Hank and Jim Build the Plane for an invited audience of theater people who were involved, including Jimmy Stewart's daughter was involved. Okay, we do the first reading in front of all of these people, and the audience response, I had to remind David that people said, "This is your first play? I can't believe that this is your first play." And Jimmy Stewart's daughter said, "It's so interesting, David. You took two men who didn't say very much, and you wrote what they would have said to each other if they could have." Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful?
I mean, David, that is like, I'd put that on frame that in my house, those words.
We love all the personal stuff, but we also love the awards. Here's the award that we all got. David graciously shared it with all of us for Powder Burns. So,
well, he's being honest. The award says outstanding performance. So Ed Asner won this with us, but it's led by the cast
and storytelling.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So this, but to John's credit, we'd be sunk in the water without a blind sheriff. And so, I mean, I ended up, and this is not just, I'm not saying this because you're here. I ended up building the show around you. I started rewriting episodes because I knew what he was going to do with certain things. And then of course he surprises me. But
also I had to get permission because, audio drama is different. And as big as I can play on screen, I felt like Sheriff Burns was really big. And I remember I was a bit insecure, and I kept asking you, is that all right? Is that too much? Is that you and Noah both? And you said, no, go. And
so if you're interested, I've uploaded all the episodes to YouTube now. It's just an easier site for me to hold them on there. And so if you search Powder Burns Western on YouTube, you can find it, and it's under my name. And I'm really proud.
I'll add it to the link on YouTube. I'll add it to the link. Just listening to you guys talk, which is really interesting because I really don't listen to many, but it's bringing back like just those memories of I guess how you would describe where they were. Like I'm just having. It's weird. Like I feel like I'm having visuals, but there were no visuals.
Yes.
Yes.
It creates a memory that isn't there. And I actually talked to my uncle.
Whoa, say that again.
It creates a memory that isn't there.
I mean, isn't that? I'm sort of actually taken aback. Like I'm sort of having, thinking of John, and all of because there's a lot of traveling, right?
Yes. Yes.
People getting from place to place,
Yes.
And it's been 3 years that I listened to it. So
glad to hear that. That makes me very happy, Ellen. I appreciate
it's wild that I'm having that, that's an interesting reaction to something I never saw.
Well, but that's the whole point, is that
Yeah.
and to that end, we don't necessarily need to see something for it to be a memory. But I started having trouble with that too. August, I think, of 2 or 3 years ago, I found out Ed Asner passed away, and I'll never forget this. I was crossing the street in my neighborhood, and this horn honks at me, and I realized I'm staring at my phone reading this article, and I felt, obviously it's different than my own father, but I felt like I needed to drop to my knees. And it's because I've heard the episode, and I started creating this memory in my head of this guy was something to me that is beyond just a man in a booth recording lines. There was something that changed. And when you listen to specifically that episode, I have to tell you, it was the first time I realized, oh, maybe if I try not acting, maybe that's more moving than anything. I learned that being in the booth with Ed. I learned that being in the booth with you. That's where this award came from that episode. There's something else that transpired. So I think a good writer is smart enough to know when to get out of the way and let the actors do the work. And then everybody kind of goes, where does that come from? There's something beautiful about that.
That's so interesting.
I'm very, yeah.
So interesting. Rochelle just asked an interesting question too. Are there acting classes for voice acting the same way you will take regular acting classes to refine your work?
That's a great question. There are plenty in New York. It's a hard business to get into, which I didn't realize. And in preparation for making Powder Burns, I thought, okay, I'm going to go in the same recording studio we recorded the show. I went and took this class from this gentleman who, this is part of his business, and he offers up classes. Because I thought, well, if I'm going to be in the booth, I want to at least know how to direct the actors. What I learned was, now this is different from doing sort of like cartoon voiceover where you're going to put on a different voice. What I learned was there's not much of a difference in how you approach the character. I say this like the microphone is the close-up. So if the camera's going to be here, if the microphone's there, it's the same kind of intimacy and performance. You don't really have to project the back wall to make something emotional. And so I'm thinking I have to learn all this stuff in order to talk to actors about how to do it. And then I realized we're not doing anything that different. But I also learned a lot about myself as an actor. I thought, I really thought I had to I think you can hear it in the first scene of the first episode. I'm like, I'm doing a voice and I'm a cowboy. You don't need to do any of that. And very quickly, I think the director pulled me aside. He's like, hey, I see what you're doing. You don't have to do any of that. Take it off.
On Batman, the Brave and the Bold, when I voiced Professor Zoom, the producers wished that I had taken a class for voiceovers because we were all standing in a semicircle. Dietrich Bader is Batman and people were playing, and I'm in the center and I'm talking to these different people. Well, my inclination as an actor is to turn and talk to the person I'm talking to. So suddenly I'm saying this line and they'll go, cut, John. You have to stay on the mic. Oh, right. And then suddenly I'm under this and I'm all into the moment. And then I go, and also my character was kind of flat. Well, they brought us back in after they had animated it. And now we're looking at the animation.
Wow.
And the lines I had to replace that were technically defective sprang to life.
Wow.
Suddenly you hear of the intercom. Thank you, everyone. John, would you mind staying and redoing your entire part? I said, I would love to. Now I see what's happening. So I did.
And I've seen that episode and it's fantastic.
I love that. Is a great story. I wanted to ask if you guys had heard the news story about another Powder Burns and One Life to Live cast member, Eddie Alderson, coming to the rescue over the last couple of days.
Yes. Have you heard about this? No. So Eddie is now an Amtrak police officer in Philadelphia. And this man,
the conductor.
The conductor on a train had a heart attack and Eddie resuscitated him, then did the paddles, got the man to have a pulse again. They got him to the hospital. He spent 2 weeks in the ICU, I think. They expected him to, at best, be in a vegetative state. And they have a footage of this man meeting Eddie again for the first time. He's doing great. And Eddie saved his life. I didn't know this, but I have to say this. I just texted Eddie about this last night. Eddie and I were dressing room mates on One Life to Live. And one day I forgot if it was his mom or somebody brought in a bunch of medical equipment. It might've been for a scene. And he like dove in. He was going through all this stuff. And we were joking with him being like, well, Eddie, do you want to be a doctor? And he was like, I don't know, but I'm so fascinated. Thank God that man became that fascinated and became an EMT and became a police officer and saved that man's life. It's because of his interest in that happened. I'm very emotional thinking about that. He's an incredible kid and a man. He's a grown man now.
Yeah.
He also cameos, I should say guest stars as John's son, no spoiler alerts, in the last episode of Powder Birds.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved seeing that news story. You know,
incredible.
In the days of news you don't want to see, that's a piece of news we all can enjoy seeing. John, a fan, CJS is asking, how did you get the role as the Flash? If you would share that again.
Well, I had a 10-year career before the Flash came around. In daytime, I had my 2 Emmys. I had been on Broadway with Harvey Fierstein. I'd been off Broadway with Judith Ivey. I fashioned myself a serious actor. And that I heard about this new show called The Flash. And they were looking for the lead. And I was very leery to go near it because up to that point, superheroes had been spoofed on television. And I just didn't think that's where my talents were. And so April Webster, multiple Emmy Award winning casting director for Lost and a whole bunch of things. She's iconic in her own right. She called me and talked to me about it. And I said, well, April, you know, Zoom, Pal, Zam, Zowie, I just don't know if I would be any good in that or if that's where my interests lay. She said, John, if this were what you're describing, do you think I would be attached? Just read Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo's Treatment, 1.5 hour movie. And I read it, and there were all these human qualities, and they were taking the people seriously. And it was an unblessed son where real cops work the streets who suddenly gets extraordinary powers, but he can't tell his dad. And I'm thinking, I can totally act all of that. Well, it was an invitation to audition. So I auditioned with what I understand to be 60 other guys. They took 2 of us to the network. And they deliberated for 3 or 4 days that shortened my life. And I heard, I hope it's not true, but I heard that the president of CBS said that guy's head would look good on a lunchbox. I hope that's not why I got it. I hope it went a little deeper than that, but that's the story in a nutshell.
I've never heard that quote. What a thing to say.
Yeah.
He's right. Wow.
It's nuts. David, besides the Henry Ford piece, do you write multiple things at once?
That's a great question. I think any writer worth their salt will tell you that I've got 48 PDFs sitting in my box. I've got somebody told me when I finished the Henry Fonda play, they said, have something else going so you don't you don't fixate, which is not going to happen because I'm going to fixate anyway. So I have another play that I've written. I've got a couple screenplays that have won some awards, but without things going into production, it's not necessarily going to change anything. However, I'm compulsively doing it. Like during the pandemic, I was compulsively doing it. During anytime I go through a tougher period in my life, I find that it's my comfort zone. It's my safety place. I'm always writing. I think all writers will do it, whether they think they're doing it or not. I've got a lot of stuff sitting on my phone. So, somebody just got to ask, and it's out there. If you wait long enough, the right things will percolate to the top. So yes, the answer is yes.
Was writing something you ever took a stab at or wanted to take a stab at?
Who's that for?
You. Did you ever? Yeah.
I write in the terms of journaling. I also write, if a topic inflames me, I'll write and I get responses. You write so well. Mm-hmm. I do not think in terms of plots. I don't have a warehouse of stories that I want to tell, but I'm very passionate in my beliefs, be they social, political, whatever. And on topics that I am firmly committed to, the words pour out. And I am able to access the language in that way. So in that respect, I do love writing. But to write a play, I don't.
I was kind of going to end on that with both of you. We all follow each other on social media. I think we all feel strongly in many same respects. You both articulate it very well. Have you always used your voice to oppose things that you feel strongly about, or was there a moment in your lives, in our country, in the world that gave you that voice per se?
I came from an activist family. In 1968, we got 18 bullets through our house for having a racially integrated Christmas party of kids in the parsonage. My dad was a preacher because some of our friends, the school being partially integrated that year, were Black. And so that propelled my parents into activist circles in other areas, which expanded and rolled out. And I've always felt a responsibility. Some people get angry. Some people say, oh, just stick to acting. And then I ask them what they do. Mm-hmm. And I say, well, we're sharing opinions here. Being an actor is just my job. Mm-hmm. It's a good job. I love it. It's just my job. But one thing my father taught me, and I have tried hard, as contentious as social media is, to follow this rule: attack the idea, never the person.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, then you have a chance of having meaningful dialogue and not losing all your friends.
That's well said.
That is well said, because it is very tough, to not get over emotional and let those feelings come out. But I appreciate it. I mean, I think we have to speak up. It's when you feel strongly about something, you should, no matter what side you're on. I mean, even if I disagree, I mean,
I have a woman on Facebook that I have known, quote unquote, for years on Facebook. And there was one issue, I won't say what it was, over which we were really on opposite sides of the fence, but we spoke to each other. She adjusted my viewpoint a little. And to this day, whenever she messages me, I tell her that I love her, even though on many points we disagree. And that's also what I love about Comic-Cons. You know what I mean? People, we check our egos, our religion, theater. Mm-hmm. We check our egos, our religion, our politics at the door. And we come in and we open ourselves to an experience that we may or may not have had before with each other.
But to your credit, it takes a person who has an open mind to even say that. I think a lot of people are not willing to change their mind. And you went into that situation open to what she had to say, it sounds like. And to this day, you still treat her with the respect of having given you another perspective.
And having disagreed with her very enthusiastically, she still was so kind to me.
Wow.
And so Janet Moskowitz, to this day, am so grateful that she's in my life.
Oh, that's funny. I think I'm looking at my email quick because I think Janet sent me a question for you. That's crazy. I'm so mad that I don't know where it is. I mean, it's a tough thing. As tough as the world is, are there things that give you hope right now?
That's tricky. I'll sort of dovetail on to what you both have been saying, is that in working on this Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart play, it's about these two men who are best friends, they're movie stars, but they're also political opposites. And I've realized in my own life, I'm asking the characters in a play to solve their differences when I'm sometimes not willing to do that myself. But every once in a while, I see a glimmer of somebody who, like yourself in that situation, having an openness to understanding what somebody you may not agree with might actually think. And it's very easy to say, oh, I disagree with you on paper. Everything you walked into the room with, I don't like, so why would I listen to you? And I think there's something to be said for, give me a second, let me listen to what this person is saying sitting in front of me. As the political climate gets more dire, I think that becomes more difficult, but I think it takes an incredible amount of discipline for somebody to say, I'm going to suit up and I'm going to sit in front of you and listen to what you're saying. You asked me a second ago, what was the moment that caused us to sort of, and I recognize the privilege I have when I walk in a room, a white passing male, Judeo-Christian upbringing, straight, cisgendered, all of these things. And I started watching my wife, shout out to Jennifer Noble, my wife, who was so active, partly because it was her job, but also partly because of the things she felt passionate about. And I thought, who am I to sit back and watch this happen simply because perhaps on paper something might not be affecting me? If it affects her, I'm getting involved. And then I realized, well, why aren't I louder about this? And then I realized that it sort of affected everything and permeated all of my friends, every single person I know in New York City. This is a global thing. This is not a national thing that we're talking about right now. So once I realized that, and I'm coming full circle to your other point, that's what gives me hope. There are more people that want to do good in this world than not. We just have
I agree. I definitely, I mean, it's been astounding, truly, since January 20th, hearing from people all over the world who are caring for what is happening to a country that they may never come to.
That's right.
But they care.
This beautiful meme that I saw that I think it's partway true. Everything has a partial truth, and this has a, and it's a beautiful sentiment. It says, I voice my opinions not so much to change the way other people think, but so that other people who think the way I do will know that they are not alone.
Yes. Wow. Yes.
Love that.
I too.
Wow. I want that. It gave me chills. Last thing for John, 47 years you have been acting. What are you most proud of?
You know, someone, I wish I had said it first, but someone said, if you're talking about a part, that's like trying to pick a favorite child. Yeah. What I am most proud of, starting studying piano when I was 4 years old, into concert organ at 13, 14, on a voice performance scholarship in the opera theater department at Indiana University, and ending up in acting. I had people in my life who said, whatever artistic medium you're working in, the point is searching for the truth, searching for the meaning behind the words. It's not the what of what you are doing, it's the why. Captain Queeg, why is he that way? If he's damaged, what could have happened that would cause him to behave in that way? What is my way in? And you know, some people say I'm a good actor, some people say I'm not, you know, whatever. We all have our opinions, but I have sincerely shown up and tried to bring my truth to whatever project I was involved in to the best of my ability, one day at a time. And that is what I am most, I would say, grateful for.
Well, I am grateful for, you know, Betty Ray introducing us to John Wesley Shipp and the entire ride you have been on ever since, Kelly Nelson.
Thank
David,
you.
Really, both of you, two fine gentlemen. Enjoy I love it so much. Thank you for taking the time. Please remember, the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial is at the Judson Theatre from April 24th to the 27th. You can click the link down below if you would like tickets.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Alan,
Always
thank you so much.
Stay well.
You too.
Bye, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Please join me on Wednesday, April 2nd, when Danny Dupre herself from Beyond the Gates, my beautiful friend Carla Mosley, will join me live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Thursday, April 3rd, we will celebrate 5 years of this show with Daniel Cosgrove. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And if you like to stream audio versions, you can search The Locker Room on your favorite podcast app. As always, everybody, please, please be kind and stay safe.